Breaking news, y'all. I just finished the new Death Note one shot that came out, I believe, yesterday. And I'm going to tell you out the gate, it's either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I can honestly say that I love the Death Note one shot. In my personal opinion, the ending was much better than the ending of the original Death Note series, which was one of, the fallings that the original Death Note series had with Light Yagami in it, is the ending. Everyone talks about the ending. It was lackluster. It really wasn't good at all. Light Yagami could have honestly have gotten away with it. But in this series, the main protagonist's name is Minoru Tanaka, right? Minoru Tanaka is projected as, he's not projected as a smart kid by academic standards, because you see that he took a test, and this is the early pages, and I'm gonna jump right into it after this, but you need to know this about him. He is not academically smart, right? You see him, he has a 28 on one of his English tests, but you see, like, the page before, on page 8, that he's actually has scored the highest in the entire middle school in the in the country of Japan, on an IQ test. Now, there's this verbal transaction between Ryuk and some other death god, other Shinigami, at the very beginning, in which, Ryuk flies off with the Death Note in hand after eating his apple, and then you see him appear through the floor of Minoru Tanaka, and he taps him on the forehead with the Death Note. Now, normally, you're like, what the fuck just happened? That's not how it works. Like, you can't just touch him with the Death Note, but we learned that they had already previously known each other. If you know anything about the Death Note, you know that they have to accept the Death Note from the Shinigami. If they don't accept it, then the Shinigami has to leave, it never happened, and then that human will forget all about it. Likewise, if they accept the book and then give it back, they forget about everything that has happened. They forget about the Shinigami. They forget about everything they did with the Death Note. They forget all that shit, and it's like it never happened again. So we find out that Minoru Tanaka actually previously had the Death Note in his possession, and that was actually 2 years prior to Ryuk coming back to greet him. Now we get the backstory of before their reunion, right? So basically, Ryuk is looking for someone else to entertain him with the Death Note. He wants to find someone exactly like Light Yagami, and because of this, this is how he sought out Tanaka, right? So this man Ryuk goes to Tanaka and is like, invite me back to your house, because, I mean, it looks like you're talking to yourself out here in public. He invites him back to his house. He explains that this was the Death Note that Kira used, I think 13 years ago, was when this actual storyline is taking place, and because of that, he is very intrigued about it. We learn that Kira, or Light in this situation, it's the same person, but fuck it. Since his passing, and since those 13 years have passed, since, he used the Death Note in the original series, Light Yagami's name has been added to textbooks, ethic textbooks that Tanaka learned about in elementary school, and he also states that they studied him in world history. Ryuk takes this as a sense of praise, but Tanaka's like, no, in ethics they taught that Kira was evil, and in world history he was described as a mass murdering terrorist, the worst in recent history. But people in Japan revered Akira as a god for the things that he's done. Ryuk remarks on this and was like, a god, huh? Now, after Tanaka explains all this to Ryuk, the Shinigami is like, okay, but I want you to be the next wielder of the Death Note. Tanaka states that, okay, I can't read this, it's in English, you need to translate it. I thought that was something that was extremely funny to put in this, because, like I said earlier, academically he is not smart, but he remarked that he likes to do puzzles and brain teasers and brain experiments, thought experiments. That's what he likes to do, which intrigued Ryuk. Now, he translates the Death Note, page 1 of the Death Note, and on the first page of the Death Note, it says, the human whose name is written in this note shall die. This note will not take effect unless the writer has the person's face in their mind when writing his or her name. Therefore, people sharing the same name will not be affected. Let's pause right there. If this story is taking place in 2019, do you know, I really don't think there's one person in the world who doesn't share a name with somebody else. Let's just call a spade a spade. Even 13 years ago, everyone's sharing a name with somebody. Now, it might be a little different with, other cultures. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, Japanese people, I don't know how the naming goes for, like, Japanese people or things of that nature. But I know in America, I am not the only Micah in America. I'm just simply not. I've Googled my name. I know how many Micahs there are in the entire country. I don't know about the world. I know that I'm not the only one. I know I share one with at least one other person. So technically, this death note would never affect me. I would have no fear of this unless that other Micah happened to die. Assuming another Micah doesn't come up, like, in the future. And of course, I know it also involves your last name. I'm not going to give you my last name, but I know it involves a last name. There's someone who shares my first and last name in this country, and I'm sure there's more in the world somewhere. So realistically, this death note should not kill based off of these rules. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it. I don't think I am, but we're going to continue on with the death note and how it is to be used. The next rule is, if the cause of death is written within 40 seconds of writing the person's name, it will happen. If the cause of death is not specified, the person will simply die of a heart attack. After writing the cause of death, details of the death should be written in the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. That's all we get. Now you see Tanaka having this mental battle. This, he's going back and forth with whether or not he should use this death note to murder people. That's the only thing that it's used for. He's having this internal conflict that we see, and he's struggling with it. Ryuk, being who he is, he was like, yo, can I get some apples? Like, I've waited 2 years for this. You told me to come back in 2 years. I came back in 2 years. I waited 2 years for apples. I want apples. So, conveniently enough, Tanaka's mother is on an apple diet. So, she just has a steady stream of apples. Look, you cannot just survive off of apples. That is not an adequate diet. These diets are getting out of fucking hand. And you have to be extremely careful with what it is that you do, especially when it comes to diets. And I don't think an all apple diet is nutritious. If you need to lose weight, have a balanced diet. That's all I'm saying. Things have changed a lot, right? We're continuing on with the chapter review, and Tanaka explains to Ryuk that things have changed since Light Yagami's era of the Death Note. There are security cameras on every corner. So he explains that it would be a lot harder for Light Yagami to get away with everything that he did 13 years ago in modern day Japan. There's, like I stated, security cameras everywhere, on buses, on cars. Everyone has a cell phone. He physically could not get away with everything that he did. So at this point, since inviting the Shinigami back to his crib, back to his house, his mother's house, hours have passed that we find. And Ryuk remarks on this, and this is where you see Tanaka basically state that he has two questions that he needs to ask. The first question he asks him is a simple one. Are there other humans besides me who can see you? And Ryuk responds, yes. He states that he should be visible to the people who touched the notebook when he brought it to the human world in the past with Light Yagami. Tanaka asks, and you're sure? And he says, I think so. For people who possessed the note, but then lost possession, I won't be visible anymore. But those who just touched the book should still be able to see me. Tanaka asks his second question, which was an interesting one at the time. I don't think it touched on this in the original series, but nonetheless, he asks, how far away can you actually get from the owner? Ryuk says that that's a tricky question. It's not a firm rule. It probably works as long as I know where the user of the Death Note is. He corrects himself and he says, or wait, I would know even from the Shinigami world, so I guess not. Tanaka asks him to be more specific. He responds and says, my point is there's no set distance. Tanaka says, well, you need to guess and give me a number. Obviously, this man is thinking of a master plan. Ryuk states if he had to give a measurement of human world standards, he would assume 14 kilometers. So that's what he's going with. This is where you see the plan that Tanaka has go into effect. He says, I'm going to return the Death Note, come back in 2 years. I already stated this earlier. I'm not going to go into it. this was a flashback. I also stated that. So, boom. He returns the possession. He forgets about the Shinigami. He forgets about the Death Note, and then Ryuk returns in 2 years, taps him with the Death Note, and that's when all of his memories come back. And that's basically where we see from Ryuk flying off in the first pages, and then him appearing in front of Tanaka in like page 3 or 4 or 5, or wherever I read it, right? So he gives the Death Note back, and then Ryuk asks, "What are you going to do with the Death Note?" Tanaka says this man plans on, he is going to sell the Death Note. That is so 2020. That is such a 2020 thing to fucking do. And so, what is this man? He's in middle school? What does that make him? Not a millennial. What's after millennials? I don't fucking care. He's selling the Death Note, right? And it only makes sense. I mean, he's not a dumb kid. He knows that there's no way he would be able to get away with everything that Light got away with in the earlier days. And people remark on that all the time. The older generation remark on that shit all the time. Like, back in my day, we used to get away with, and they would say the most outlandish shit. And you're like, there's no way that we would have been able to get away with that. Just because of how much our society runs on electronics. You can't get away with anything nowadays. There's a camera everywhere. He said that he's going to put it up for auction, and this is where we're going to start going a little bit faster. Now, he's going to put it up for auction, and how he plans to do that is not online. He states that, it's kind of like one of those things. If he put it online, then instantly the police are just going to track the online post back to him, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Craigslist, it doesn't matter. If he puts it up online, they can just reverse track it, take him and the Death Note, and be done with the entire thing. What he says for Ryuk to do is to go to Sakura TV, which is 11 kilometers away from his house, and hold up a sign, and hold up a sign in front of the main camera, because it's live television, it's live news. He holds up a sign that says, "The power to remotely kill people is used by Kira, is being put up for auction. If you want to buy it, use the hashtag #PowerOfKira on Twitter and indicate your bid amount in American dollars." Now, this sparks concern all across the country, right? It's sparking concern in Japan, and it's sparking concern in America, and you just see this massive influx of people just bombarding Twitter with bids. Like, people are just throwing out like 800,000, a million, 1.5, 2 mil, 3 mil. 3 mil at this point in the story on page 41 is the highest bid, okay? I do appreciate this little, I'm not going to say info dump, because it's not an info dump, but, little explanations. Let's just call it that, right? Because obviously Death Note is very popular in America, so a lot of these things, unless you have a calculator out, you're not going to understand what it is that's happening, okay? So, Tanaka, he's in class, he's chilling in the back, he's not paying much of attention, he has his phone out, he's listening to music, and then you have kids in the classroom remarking about how much this book is going for, right? So $3 million, and this one kid said, $3 million, that's over, carry the 1, and divide by pi, square root it. And he's like, that's over 300 million yen. Now, honestly, as much as I watch anime, I still don't know yen to dollar conversion rate. It just is what it is. This is when you see the OG return on page 42, okay? We bring back, all right, OGL. Not OGL. He can't be OGL because he's L 2.0. This man has just let himself go. All right, he ain't fat, but like, this man ain't had a haircut in 13 years, and it shows. He is, this man is fucking crazy. The police force and everybody come in to talk to L and basically inform him about how the Death Note appeared on Sakura TV, and the Shinigami also appeared, and how because they have touched the Death Note, they can see it, so they know it's for real, and it's reappeared. And they ask him what he's doing, and he's saying he's making a replica of a Shinigami, and L 2.0 is trying to create a facial recognition system for Shinigami. Now, oh God, L 2.0, like, look, fine. Do what you got to do. You're an odd fellow. You can do that if you want to do that. By all means, go for it. But stop it, because no. L 2.0. You can't do that, because you only have been touched by one Shinigami, which means you only have one face in the recognition software. So why do you need a recognition software if there's only one in the fucking system? It's not like you were touched by all of them. Then you would probably need one. But even then, you're the only person who can recognize it. So, I mean, I guess if you want to be the lone hunter of Shinigami, it would help. But whatever. You're wasting government resources, L 2.0. Stop wasting government resources. L 2.0 remarks on, well, I have to say this because L 2.0, all right, I'm going to stop saying L 2.0. L, he remarks on the fact that Tanaka is being very cautious. But I'm not going to call him Tanaka because they don't know who it is within the series, okay? They don't know Tanaka to be the possessor of the Death Note. So L gives him a nickname, right? And his nickname that he gives him is A. Kira. Just like that. A-Kira. That's the name that he gives him. It's L. All right, just let him be him, okay? He remarks on the fact that Akira is extremely smart, and he wants to get in touch with Mr. Aizawa to review the security footage from Sakura TV in order to investigate this matter. Now, the bidding is still going on. We're going to speed this up a little bit because I'm not going to go over every single detail of this, but I mean, it's a lot because after a certain point, it started to get really flat for me. This is where I say, like, it's either you love it or you hate it, because a large part of this, like back when I told you he was going to sell the Death Note, it was just this long drawn out bidding process in which time was just passing. Like, L was still trying to be active in the police force. They were still trying to be active in finding Akira, but at the same time, on Tanaka's end, he was just going to school and living his life and orchestrating the bidding war that was going on. So he sends Ryu to Sakura TV again, and he held up another sign in front of the TV camera, and he said, "1 week left until the end of the auction. It may end premature as well. You will be informed if that happens. The transaction will be final. No complaints, no returns." This is when you see well, actually, let me not go there because I can't miss this part. Once that second sign comes out, you see an officer run out. Masuda. You see Masuda run out. And he holds up his badge and he was like, "Police, don't even think about trying to buy the Kira's power." Now, this is just stupid on his end because he just validated that this was real, okay? Now, at first, you could have just argued that it was just a bunch of trolls on Twitter throwing out a bunch of numbers. But now that you have the police involved and Masuda is involved and saying, "Yo, do not buy this notebook. It is Kira's notebook. What are you doing?" Now, governments are getting involved, okay? Governments are getting involved, and that's again, we flash over to Tanaka in class, and the same boys that we were talking about before are still on Twitter scrolling, and he's like, the bids have gone up to $200 billion. Well, what does that equate to in yen? That's 20 trillion yen, okay? So 200 billion equals 20 trillion. I like the fact that this new one shot also drops gems on, history. That, assuming it's right, I don't see why they would lie. A lot of these things that they're talking about that I do know is factual information, but this one I can't verify. But it is stated that the random boy in the class, he says, that's not personal money he said, "That's not personal money anymore. Even the richest man in the world only has 130 billion, I think," end quote, right? So he speculates that it's a group or probably a nation or large bodies of government having a proxy bid for them. Okay, so at this point, this has become a national fair. So Tanaka, like Yagami, he stayed within the realm of, criminals, but Tanaka is turning this into an arms race, so to speak, because if you have the Death Note, you essentially have the most powerful weapon in the entire world. No, you do have the most powerful weapon in the entire world, because you have to think about it. 2019, everybody's name is on the internet. You could easily take out world leaders, presidents, political figures by simply writing their name in a notebook. You could take anybody out. Anybody. With no hesitation, no resistance, no anything like that. So, yeah, these bids are getting really, really up there. A third sign appears, and it states, "Don't bother with Twitter. Put your government rep in the media to make an official announcement on how much you want to pay for it. L 2.0 remarks, and he says, this is getting interesting. Because it is getting interesting. You're forcing who wants to buy the notebook to show their face. This is when you get the comedy aspect of this, and I was on the ground fucking rolling, y'all. Like, the next page on page 58, now, he's not named, but he looks exactly like Donald Trump. It says, Mr. President, quotes, we're on page 58, says, in 2005, the FBI director and a boy named Near testified to the president that Kira's Power was a notebook that would kill a person if you wrote their name in it. If true, we cannot allow any other nation to get their hands on it. The United States will buy the power of Kira for $500 billion. China's not having that shit. China comes on, the Republic of China comes on and states that they will buy Kira's power for $1 trillion and promises to use it for peaceful ends. We get a translation. It's like $1 trillion. That's 100 yen per dollar. That equals to 100 trillion yen. Donald rebuts and says we'll buy it for $2 trillion and never use it for world peace. Okay, let me read that again. He said we'll buy it for $2 trillion, comma, and never use it, exclamation point, for world peace, exclamation point. Meaning, he'll use it, just not for world peace. Okay, that's what that's coming out to be. He releases Tanaka. He sends Ryuk to the Sakura station again with another note to hold in front of the camera. It says, any world leader bidding must name a price only, no other nonsense. He doesn't want anything other than this money at this current point within this one shot. Now, you fast forward, you have the prime minister of the Republic of China at this time being interviewed, and he spits real rap raw. He says, let's not kid ourselves with idealistic statements. We all know some government is going to end up with it, and whatever country says don't buy it will be the first to turn around and try to. That's real rap raw. I'm not going to sit here and dispute that. The U.S. president currently that is being depicted in this one shot, can't say if it's Trump or not. He was never identified. Don't want to get in trouble there. Nonetheless, the U.S. president bids 1 quadrillion yen, right? This dude states that a quadrillion yen equals Japan's national debt, right? He was like, maybe we can get Kira to pay off the whole thing. He says, maybe we can get him to pay off all of Japan's debt. And another dude, he says, but then the Japanese government would likely return the money to whoever wins it, especially if it's the Americas. Oh yeah, there's the whole U.S.-Japan security relationship, especially if they get Kira's power. Plus, Japan is the most indebted nation in the world, but it also holds the most assets. And then the dudes, he was like, huh, what do you mean? I don't get it. And then the boy who was just explaining, he was like, just Google it yourself. So, I mean, that's one thing that I'll probably look up after this. It might be something that you want to look up too. But this is where we get word from Akira or Tanaka that he is going to end this whole thing tomorrow. He announces that Kira's power will be sold to the United States of America for 1 quadrillion yen. All right? The method of transferring this amount will be revealed in 24 hours. Now, that has been stated. Something very important has to be known with this right now, okay? Before this all occurred, literally, a page before, Ryuk is talking with Tanaka, and then another Shinigami by the name of Armani Justin appears and says that the Shinigami King is calling and that he needs to speak with Ryuk regarding the matter. This is when Ryuk leaves. The amount has been specified about how much is going to be transferred, and then it's just a waiting game at this point. And the entire time, L 2.0 and everybody is discussing how they have to catch this man before this whole transaction goes down, right? It's not a crime to buy a notebook, even if it was used to be committed for murder, but that's all speculation. You see what I'm saying? They can't tie a book to murder. It's an urban legend, even though it is confirmed that, you know, Light Yagami is a mass murderer. Kira is a mass murderer. Nonetheless, with this whole situation, their best bet in catching Akira is when the transaction goes down between him and the United States of America when they purchased this book. Well, why is that? Well, the biggest reason being is that, well, How do you wire transfer? Well, first they state outright, nobody has a quadrillion yen in paper money. That's not a thing. That is not a thing. Japan does not have a quadrillion yen sitting around that they can match, which means it has to be a wire transfer. The problem with that being is no one bank account can hold a quadrillion yen, and if it could, it would instantly tell the government, the Japanese government, and L 2.0 who Akira is, and this would be an open and closed shut case. They would just intercept Akira and the Death Note before he could actually take it to America in order to give it to the US president that is within this one shot. And that's what they're banking on, all right? This is when you really see Tanaka, aka Akira, flex his muscles, all right? He comes up the next day with another sign, because keep this in mind, they were banking on that money transfer. They were banking on it. It's only one person they can go to. If Akira only wanted it to go to one person. If it was only going to one person. But this is how he gets around it. The nigga's smart. He real smart, all right? He puts up another sign and says the money from the winning bid should be deposited by May 27th of this year in equal amounts to every person with a Yotsuba Bank of Japan savings account and registered residents in Tokyo age 60 and under as of the date of May 24th, 2019. Meaning, they have to transfer and divide 1 quadrillion yen amongst all of those bank accounts at that one bank. Think of your bank right now. Think of whatever bank is the most popular bank wherever you're from. Could you imagine how much money would come into your account? Could you imagine the sheer panic of what is going to happen to be a banker and knowing you have to have that? Because everybody and their mama would be jettisoning to the bank to open up an account within those 3 days. There would be nothing stopping people from trying to open up a bank account, because in 3 days, in 72 hours, 1 quadrillion yen is going to be divided up amongst, let's see, 1 million accounts. If I'm reading this right, 1 quadrillion yen, there's apparently 1 million people with a Yotsuba Bank of Japan savings account that's under the age of 60. I don't know where this person got those numbers from, but he, like, this person knows those numbers really well to be a civilian in the crowd. But that means that everybody is getting 1 billion yen per person. I don't care what currency you have. 1 billion is 1 billion, no matter which way you go, right? Tanaka's mom busts in the door and is like, Minoru. It's Minoru Tanaka. I just say Tanaka. It's easier for me to talk. Minoru. And she was like, and Tanaka's like, huh? He was like, you got an account with Yotsuba Bank, don't you? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, do you know what just happened? We are a filthy rich boy. And just like I said, everybody's lining up outside of the bank trying to bust in and get a bank account. And yeah, they're like, a statement comes out over the news, and it basically says that everybody is storming the bank branches, trying to open up bank accounts. People are looking at their savings account and seeing a massive influx of money. The narrator in the manga says that the bank announced that customers will be able to withdraw their savings amount prior to the 24th. At this time, up to a total of 100,000 yen per day. More details can be found on the Yotsuba Bank website. And Tanaka remarks, he's like, so I won't be able to access it for like a month. Tanaka relinquishes the Death Note to Ryuk, and Ryuk takes it to the President of the United States. And we're in the last bit of the entire series, and this has dragged on for quite some time, but I mean, it's 87 pages, and it's a lot of information to take out, and I really did like this series. And he's about to he's in the Oval White House, he's about to hand over the Death Note, and as he gives it to him, we find out some twisted shit, and I really want to talk about this. Ryuk tells the president, and he says, I actually got yelled at by the Shinigami King before I came here. He said, quote, how could you let him sell the Death Note in the human world, end quote. So Ryuk states that there's been a new rule added to the Death Note. Like, that was a big thing back in the original series. Like, you could just write rules in. It was very that rule was very lax, right? They were just putting rules in the Death Note as he went along, which was, I mean, I don't fucking know. I thought it was real convenient. He could just write notes in. But anyway, write rules into the Death Note. But nonetheless, he tells the president that there's been a new rule added, and the rule is fucked up. He said, a human who buys or sells the Death Note in the human world will die. The seller will die when they receive the money, and the buyer will die when they receive the Death Note. And the president's like, Orewa, what? And he's like, that's crazy. That's crazy. He was like, yeah, but it's a brand new rule. What are you going to do? So you paid all that money just to die. He states, but if you refuse to take the notebook, it will treat it as if you didn't buy it. So basically, he spent all that money to buy the Death Note, and he's not allowed to receive it due to the fact that he will die if he touches it. The president says, really? He was like, but at this point, you aren't getting any of your money back, so it doesn't matter. And then, Ryuk is you know, he's tempting him. He said, now, if you take the notebook, you'll die, but it will remain here. So someone high and mighty in this country will get it, right? You'll die, but it'll belong to your nation. So what's the plan? The president says, I'm not taking it. Ryuk is like, got it. You value your life over your country. You goddamn right I do. Who the fuck is dying for this country? I wish somebody would. I wish somebody would try to tell me to die for this country. Please. Ha! Ha! Let that draft have happened like a month ago. Let me tell you this. They could have drafted me on Tuesday. They could have drafted me on Tuesday and had me on a plane flying out. They would have had me on a plane coming back by Friday. You're not getting me. I'm not dying for this country. The president simply states that he'll just announce that he gained the power of Kira anyway, even though he doesn't have the power. He's just going to lie to the public and say that he does. The Shinigami says, very shrewd, Mr. President. He flies away, and he states that, what do I do now? Minoru doesn't know about this new rule, because he flashes back to when Minoru told him, Tanaka told him, leave him alone, don't come anywhere near me. It's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to see you again. I never want you to come around. I will never contact you. You never contact me. And this is where the problem comes in a hand, because as the new rule stated, a human who buys or sells the Death Note in the human world will die. So technically, Tanaka, Minoru Tanaka, our boy Akira, sold the Death Note. Even though the president didn't take the Death Note, Tanaka still sold it. So a month passes. A month later, Japan's economy was booming, especially around the capital. They called it the Reiwa bubble, or the Kira bubble. Everyone's paying cash for apartments and cars and shit, and they're just doing it big out there because, you know, you have 1 billion yen. A million people have 1 billion yen. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's insane. And Minoru Tanaka drops dead, y'all. He dies. This nigga is gone, ladies and gentlemen. It just keels over. And the last page we see is Ryuk, the Shinigami, writing Minoru Tanaka's name in the Death Note right underneath Light Yagami's name. And his last words of the one-shot are, what a shame, his plan was perfect. I guess it doesn't matter how you do it. Any human who uses the Death Note meets an unfortunate end. Aw. And then he has a little thought bubble of apples. Isn't there anyone who will use this thing for a bit longer than that? Ladies and gentlemen, Light Yagami, aka Kira, Minoru Tanaka, aka Akira, both met their ends at the hands of the Shinigami, the Death God, Ryuk. Because of this Death Note, I want to make this perfectly clear. L 2.0 admitted he lost. This plan was flawless, other than the fact, you know, that rule that was implemented at the very fucking end. And we're going to talk about that fucking rule. But Tanaka had a flawless plan. There was nothing that they could do after he divided up that money. After he divided up that money amongst 1 million people, there was no way that they were going to be able to sift through 1 million people in 72 hours and have any evidence leading up to him. I have issue with this. I loved it, but the ending, like, they really be fucking up these endings. Like, I just don't know what it is. They can't end mangas, or the original Death Note's ending was bad. This one's less bad, but it's still bad. That rule should not have affected him. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that rule where, if you buy or sell the Death Note, you die, right? That shouldn't have affected him. Because that rule didn't get placed into the book until after he had already done it. Right, like, you can't implement a rule after someone has already exploited the system. You see what I'm saying? Like, I can't even give you an example, but it's just, that's just standard practice. And granted, I understand we're dealing with death gods, you guys. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and beseech loyalty from them. At the end of the day, I just think that was fucked up. You know, he exploited the system. There was no rule previously about selling the Death Note. The Death God, you know, the king of the underworld, whatever that nigga's name is, was just fucking salty that somebody got around a rule that they never took into consideration. Somebody selling the Death Note. You see what I'm saying? Like, and then you put it in there, and suddenly now Tanaka is dead because of it. I would have preferred Tanaka live, and then that would have segued in another maybe one shot with somebody else in which that rule does apply. You see what I'm saying? But Tanaka, Minoru Tanaka, should have gotten away. He should be alive, right? I believe that Minoru Tanaka is superior than Light. It just depends. You know, what they wanted was different, and they did live in completely different time zones. It's really hard to, you know, speculate on this due to the fact that technology wasn't present in Light Yagami's era. And I believe wholeheartedly that if Light Yagami tried to do what he did 13 years ago in 2019, there's no way that that would have flown. He would have gotten caught relatively, I don't know about relatively quick, but he would have gotten quick. He would have gotten caught quicker than what we saw 13 years ago in the original Death Note. Tanaka played it extremely smart. Would Light Yagami have also came to the same conclusion, utilize Ryuk more to deliver messages and stuff like that? Light wouldn't have used the computer. Phones weren't that technologically advanced back in the day to where they had GPSs where you could just track people down. They were probably still using, you know, They were probably still using minutes where they had to load the minutes on every single month, and if you ran out, then you couldn't text or make phone calls anymore. You probably still had to call after 7 p.m. things of that nature. So it's one of those situations where, you know, Light had an advantage because of the time period that Tanaka was able to exploit. I really just think he should not have, that rule should not have applied to Tanaka. And that's what I have to say on this. But this video has gone long enough. If anybody has made it to the end, thank you for rocking with me to the end. I have talked a lot, and this is just, you know, the one shot and what it is. I mean, look, if you made it to the end, I need some water. If you made it to the end, thank you for rocking with me. Comment down below if you think that rule should have applied to Tanaka. Alright, I personally do not think it should have applied to him because the money was already in the account. At that point, the transaction is done. Okay? Done. Right? And does that mean that, no, it's just for the buyer and seller? But regardless, it's done. It's done. And technically, if I want to be a dick and nitpick, the president never technically bought, well, the Death Note. What happened? Because he never received it, okay? If you don't receive it, then you didn't buy it. This is my logic, okay? Fuck Death Note Shinigami logic. The product was not delivered to the president, so he technically didn't buy it. What happened was the United States of America made a generous donation to the Yotsubu Bank of Japan for 1 million citizens, and that's what happened. That's what I'm going to go with, since they want to be assholes in the goddamn book. But if you are new, go plus ultra and smash that subscribe button. Thank you for rocking with me to the end of this video. It lets me know that you rock with the content that I put out here on this channel. This was a very, very, very fun read that I had to do. I have I have 2 more videos to bring out tomorrow for my chapter reviews for this week, and then we will start them all over again this weekend. A lot of new mangas came out this week, so it threw my schedule off, even though I really don't have a schedule. I just get the videos out within the weekend and hope for the best. That Sunday and that Monday are usually my chapter review releases. I'm gonna get back to the light novel reviews, and then hopefully next week I'm going to have a One Piece discussion series that I want to start on the channel. So if you're into One Piece, if you're into Kimetsu no Yaiba, if you're into My Hero Academia, if you're into Samurai 8, if you're into light novels, I'm currently going through all the Naruto light novels, and I will be implementing movie reviews in the near future. So if you are interested in any of that, smash that subscribe button, comment down below if you think the rules should have applied to Minoru Tanaka, and share the video, and like always, keep it safe and tight. I'm out.
Point secure. UAV on station. Precision airstrike on the way.
Yeah, Max, sorry.
Friendly UAV on station.
So I'm using the AUG, and it's actually not that bad. I like it. We got a cluster strike. Shit.
Location confirmed. Get moving.
Takes forever to reload, though. I got already ranked it up, so that's not bad.
Enemy cruise missile incoming. Hardpoint contested.
Oh shit. Got three of them that were sitting right in that back area.
Hardpoint contested.
I could have, if I just had one more bullet.
Keep it tight. Hardpoint contested. UAV on station. Hardpoint lost. Stand by to move.
Damn, I ranked it up again.
Taking the hardpoint. UAV standing by.
Got triple nice.
UAV entering the AO.
Dude, I got a.
Enemy control the hardpoint.
Nice. Yep. Shit, there's nothing I want to do.
UAV bingo fuel. RTB for resupply.
Friendly UAV on station. We've taken the hard point. Friendly care package inbound.
Gonna care back in. What counter UAV? What the shit is this?
Counter UAV active. Control the enemy has the hard point.
right there under the bricks. Oh, God.
We have the hard point. No go. We control the hard point.
Oh.
Enemy controls the hard point.
There's a ton of guys.
We control the hard point. Hard point control. Control the
Mother.
standing by.
I like this off. This is.
UAV entering the AO.
Enemy
I like
personal
that.
radar online.
Wow. No,
You hit the enemy hard.
we lost. I can't believe we lost. Yeah, I mean, I just out of that just now. I ranked it up like fuck. These have a bigger clip, I think, is what it is. Oh, Jesus, 13-18? Well.
Yeah, step it up, bro.